Let's look now at the way in which you set up employees in Just Timesheets. This will always be done by the administrator, who will go to Data Maintenance and then to the Employees page. Here we see the single employee record for the single employee which we preload into this pre-configured system. Let's create another employee. Click on Create, enter an employee code, an employee name, David Hughes for example. Then you must always specify the company to which this employee belongs, the company that employs this employee, in other words. This is a multi-company system, but generally with this ready-to-go Just Timesheets, you'll be just one company. You'll then enter an email address so that David Hughes receives emails telling him what he needs to do in the system, a login name, and a password. And then, if this is relevant, you can say effectively what his starting date would be. Let's suppose that he started on the 1st of January. Similarly, but of course you would do this when you are recording the fact that an employee is leaving your company, you might specify an open to date. There are more fields here than are necessary for Just Timesheets, so I won't go into detail on all of those. These are the important ones: the code, the name, the company for which the employee works, the email address, the login name, the password, which you must also confirm, and then potentially the open from, and in extreme circumstances the open to date. Then there's the analysis tab, and this may or may not be important to you. We'll say, depends of course on what you've set up for these fields, and there's another earlier video tutorial that shows you how to set up cost centers. Let's suppose that this employee works for services. Location is not mandatory, and you may or may not have set up locations. Grade is only important if you are calculating fees. I'll put intermediate here. And if you have some notion of an hourly cost for the employee, then you could put it in here. This is useful for calculating project margins and employee margins. It is a matter for you to decide how to calculate hourly cost. It's something that there might be quite a lot of debate about. Some people would take the total direct cost for an employee and spread it across all working days in the year, regardless of whether the employee is on holiday those days or not, all potential working days. Others might take all those direct costs and divide them by the number of available days. You would take all working days of the year and subtract the annual holiday that the employee might have, or any training that you expect the employee to have, perhaps even an estimated number of sickness days. In other words, you're spreading the cost across all the days on which you expect the employee actually to work. Others might spread that cost across only those days when they expect the employee to work on chargeable projects. And in that case, for example, if you had 200 available days, but you expected chargeable utilization of only 70%, then you would spread all direct costs across 140 days. It depends really on how you want your reports to look. Some people think of the cost as needing to be recovered only by the chargeable projects, and others look at it different ways. In any case, the way the system will work is that the cost will be calculated on the basis of all time entered into timesheet cells. So whereas fees would be calculated only on chargeable projects, the hourly cost, which we'll put in as, say, 50, will be calculated for every timesheet cell. So that's how you set up an employee. The final thing is to set up the authorizing line manager. This is the person who will authorize this employee's timesheet and absence requests. You don't have to set this up. If you want timesheets simply to be posted without being authorized, then you simply wouldn't set up a line manager here. So it's as simple as that, and we save this, and we now have 2 employees in the system.